Well, good morning. Our theme for the month is Finding God in the World. As I said last week, it's a title of a book by Diana Butler Bass. And I've been reading it this week, and I'm kind of enchanted with it because she's a former Christian minister, and she is tracing the transformation of the old story that we have lived in. And I know John Culver and I have a lot of conversations from where he came from his Christian background, to the transition into where we are. And she kind of does that. She traces the history of that. From the old story as a hierarchy with God in the heaven and we're down here, to a story that God lives and moves in the world. And she says that those of us who say that we're spiritual but not religious should look upon ourselves as participants in a revolution that is redefining God in all things, therefore making all things sacred. So while she and I differ a bit in our ideas, I totally agree that the world is filled with wonder and awe. And that's why I chose my topic today, miracles in the mundane. Albert Einstein is credited with the statement, there are only two ways to live your life. One, as though nothing is a miracle. The other, as though everything is a miracle. And whether he said it or not, it's still something to contemplate. Because if nothing is a miracle, then the mundane world that we live in will never lead to awe or reverence for life. If everything is a miracle, then we will be forever surprised by those moments that take our breath away. The monsoon storm that comes across the desert floor, and the double rainbow that follows it. The tiny shoot working its way through a crack in the sidewalk, or the bird singing somewhere in a neighbor's yard. And the miracle of human connection, from a baby's coo, the child's laughter, the supporting smile of a friend. Rosie mentioned Thich Nhat Hanh, and he said, people usually consider walking on water or in thin air a miracle. But I think the real miracle is not to walk either on water or in thin air, but to walk on earth. Every day we are engaged in a miracle in which we don't even recognize. A blue sky, white clouds, green leaves, the black curious eyes of a child, our own two eyes. All is a miracle. So I would like, and I think most of us would like to live our lives as everything is a miracle. But like all of us, I am human and I get caught up in the mundane and I forget to see the miracles. And I'm grateful for that moment that returns me to the realm of miracles. Marianne Williamson says, with every thought we think, we either summon or block a miracle. That's pretty profound, isn't it? So if we live as though nothing is a miracle, we have automatically blocked them. If we live as though everything is a miracle, then we naturally summon them into our lives. And she continues, it is not our circumstances then, but rather our thoughts about our circumstances that determine our power to transform them. Miracles occur naturally as an expression of love. They reflect a shift in how we think, a shift in how we perceive a situation. We know, and we've been taught, that thought is the creative level which precedes all things, all manifestation. So it makes sense that when we move into a place of wonder, when we hold the belief that everything is a miracle, then we are providing a mold which the infinite may pour into its blessings. Again, Marianne Williamson says, we are heirs to the law that governs the world that we believe in. If we think of ourselves as beings of this world, then the laws of scarcity and death which rule this world will rule us. If we think of ourselves as children of God, whose real home lies in a realm of awareness beyond this world, then we will find we are under no laws but God's. And that's the realm of miracle making, for we are outside the limitations that the mundane world sets on us. We can choose to see a world of connection in which all of God's love abounds and manifests in peace, joy, harmony, abundance. Charles Eisenstein, in his book, The More Beautiful World Our Hearts Know Is Possible, calls this interbeing, as does Thich Nhat Hanh. And Mr. Eisenstein believes that as we begin to see a new story, cracks in the old ones appear. He says, as a story ages, cracks appear in its boundary in the shell of the cosmic egg. A miracle is a name we give to the light that shines through from a larger, more radiant world. It says not only that reality is bigger than we thought it was, but that bigger reality is coming. It is both a glimpse and a promise to the extent that we ourselves are living in the realization of interbeing, we too are able to become miracle workers. Miracles transcend the laws of this world, and that's why we can't force them. We can't make them happen. We can't figure out how to get them. And that's why they can't be consciously directed. They occur as the involuntary effects of a loving heart. And we could say that miracles are a byproduct of love. So if we haven't got love, then we've blocked those miracles. When we relinquish the fears that block the love within us, we become the channels through which miracles occur. When we transform, when we step into the realm of unconditional love where they dwell, then they become our natural allies, drawing themselves into our experiences. Mr. Eisenstein has outlined several ways in which we can be the conduits for miracles, and I want to use them today, a couple points to ponder. First one, when one experiences the world as abundant, then acts of generosity are natural, since there is no doubt about continued supply. And I've told this story, but so what? Here it goes again. Because when I was in ministerial school, I had the privilege of having Dr. Rocco Errico as my teacher. He has a monthly article in the magazine. And he was a student of George Lambza, who literally wrote the Aramaic version of the Bible. He translated the Aramaic version of the Bible into English. And when Dr. Errico was speaking of the story about the loaves and the fishes, he told us that people in those days carried food with them, but they protected it in deep layers of clothing. That way, if you got robbed and they took your cloak, they wouldn't take the other 3 or 4 that covered the food. And he felt that when it was time to feed the people, that there was one person who came forth with his hidden food, and that triggered others to do the same. In other words, the miracle of the loaves and fishes was more about love showing up as abundance so that there were baskets left over. And Dr. Errico also said it doesn't mean that Jesus couldn't have performed a miracle by himself, but why would he when his whole message was about loving each other and experiencing that love as abundant life? Yet most of us have had periods in our lives when we didn't feel abundant, and if we think of those moments, we remember the constriction we felt in our entire body. We felt that we could not give to others because there just simply wasn't enough. And in our own life, when John and I decided to tithe, we weren't sure what it would do to our bottom line. And now I can't imagine not tithing because I see how the abundance of the universe has shown up for us. And our story is not unique. Joan Gattuso, in A Course in Life, tells what happened to her as she began to tithe. Giving 10% to where God is nurturing me. Giving 10% to where God is nurturing me affirms my conviction. It's fun, it's a joy, and it's a miracle working power in my life and countless other people's lives as well. Once we prime our giving pump, we find more ways to be generous with one another, and we find our joy steadily increasing. So it's from that consciousness that experiences the world as abundance that generosity can become an avenue that opens the channels for miracles. As we begin to experience those miracles in our own life in unique and amazing ways, we know that we no longer have to manipulate or worry or try to make things happen. Because stuff shows up, you know. We think about buying something at the store, and a friend shows up with that exact item as a gift. Or we find an error, this happened to me, we find an error in our accounting, and we have more money in the bank than we thought we did. So every one of us has our own, if we think back on it, we've got our own stories of these little miracles in our lives. My son likes to call them God giggles, but they're the little miracles that tend to show up to say, hey, I'm here. The second one, Mr. Eisenstein suggests, when one appreciates the order, beauty, mystery, and connectedness of the universe, a deep joy and cheerfulness arises that nothing can shake. Astrophysicist Neil deGrasse Tyson is a poster boy for this suggestion. I loved his program when it was being aired. And he says the atoms of our bodies are traceable to stars that manufactured them in their cores and exploded these enriched ingredients across our galaxy billions of years ago. For this reason, we are biologically connected to every other living thing in the world. We are chemically connected to all molecules on Earth. And we are automatically connected to all atoms in the universe. We are not figuratively, but literally stardust. You know, being in nature is probably one of the best ways to appreciate the order, beauty, mystery, and connectedness. Certainly looking at the stars on a moonless night creates in us that same sense of connectedness that Dr. Tyson talks about. And even disasters are opportunities for miracles. Most of you know that I lost everything in the Northridge earthquake in 1994. We lived in a condo. I'm going to tell you, I had just bought a Miata, and I hadn't even made the first payment. And it was a 3-story condo, which collapsed. So my car, you couldn't even see my car. But anyway, what I gained was the stars. With all light extinguished in Los Angeles, the stars were so bright that I could touch them. And I realized that for the entire time I had lived in Los Angeles, I had never seen stars there. So I just stood there watching them in awe in the middle of this devastation, seeing the miracle. I believe if we stay close to nature, to those things that nurture us spiritually, then we are in touch with something more than what we can feel with our senses. And it's this connection with that something greater that keeps us grounded, so that when stuff does happen, we can turn to that something and feel and find a sense of peace and inner joy. We can see miracles that come from this appreciation. Our relationship with others carry more patience, more happiness, more gratitude. Anything unlike love moves out of those relationships. Fences are mended, friendships deepen, and what we thought was someone we had to tolerate becomes our friend. And the final suggestion by Mr. Eisenstein: when one lets go of the story of the discrete and separate self, amazing intuitive and perceptual capabilities emerge from lifelong latency. So the more I have found that the more connected I feel to everything and every person, the more intuitive I become. And when I follow that intuition, there's often a miracle embedded in it. You know? And here's another story that I've told before, but I love it. In a previous marriage, my husband and I had a condo at Mammoth Mountain in the California Sierras. And we were looking forward to an upcoming trip. And about 3 days before departure, I heard a strong voice inside my head: be on the desert floor at midnight. And I just laughed it off. But during the next few days, I heard it several more times, so I began to pay attention. And I told my husband, and since we like to drive late at night, he agreed to follow the voice, even though neither of us knew why. We were on Highway 395 about 10 minutes before midnight when we saw a turnoff that seemed to go into the desert. We took it, and it did. And it dead-ended at a sand dune. And so Jerry said, okay, now what? And I said, I think we're supposed to spread our blankets on this sand dune, and that's what we did. At exactly midnight, as we were looking up at the sky, an incredible meteor shower began, with meteors streaming across the sky every few seconds. We watched it like a fireworks display. It was breathtaking, and at the end of about 45 minutes or an hour, it slowed down to an almost stop, and I heard the words, "Thank you for coming." Jerry and I made many more trips to Mammoth Mountain, both during the day and at night, and on every trip we watched for the turnoff, and we never found it. We never found it, so. But I know that my intuition, and I know you can say the same about yours, has guided me to miracles in my life. I mean, I believe my intuition was responsible for my coming here. And I truly believe that once we learn to listen to our intuition and to accept that there is a knowledge beyond our own intellect, we are able to place greater trust in the universe, and that trust is what brings us miracles. Mr. Eisenstein believes that we, as an entire civilization, live on the edge between these two stories. Many of us sense that the story of separation is giving way to a story of unity and connectedness. It hasn't happened completely, but we glimpse it. And I think those of us in Science of Mind and other like-minded philosophies or groups are the cutting edge for the new story. And you and I might not be around to read the new story to its final chapter, but we are the ones that are shaping its content. And the more we let go of the old story of separate self, the more we realize that love is the only authority, and we are all one at the cosmic level because we are all expressions of love. As we move from this old story of separation to one of connection and wholeness, we again place ourselves in the realm of miracles. The more we trust these inner urgings, the more we find these things happening to us that seem miraculous to those who are stuck in the old story. In other words, as we look at each and every experience through the eyes of the new story, the things we used to experience as mundane become sacred. And we do see the miracles in every single act. And we can even look at a fairy tale. I watched Beauty and the Beast the other day just for fun. And I thought about it. The prince, under the spell of the separate world, has lived as the beast until Beauty's unconditional love breaks the spell, restoring him to his true self. And isn't that what we should all be about, to see the hugeness of love and its healing abilities, to be part of it so that we bring to each moment restoring our planet and for each person on it. Shouldn't we, like beauty, do our best to see what appears to be vile, repulsive, even devastating through the eyes of unconditional love, and thereby become vehicles for its transformation? This world of miracles, the things we cannot make happen, is a world of the gift. To live in it, we must let go of the old ways of controlling, keeping, and holding back. We must learn to see the world through the eyes of the gift. That, too, is part of the new story. You and I are here to share freely all the love that we are so the new story can unfold through us. When we see miracles in what others see as mundane, we are the vision holders for that new story. And the miracles that occur naturally as expressions of love will be the gift and the legacy that we leave with this world. Thank you. Namaste.